go ahead and start. Just quickly, by way of introduction, for those that don't know me, I'm Geoff O'Keeffe. I'm the Executive Director of Zen Peacemakers, and I think some folks are here for the first time. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And I know some folks are here for the umpteenth time, and welcome to you as well, and everybody in between. This is a format that we've been doing for, I don't know, going on 6 years now. I always tell the story, I'll keep it really short. When I started 6 years ago, my predecessor said, you need to have a monthly members meeting. And I said, well, what do we do in a monthly members meeting? And he said, oh, update about the organization and what's going on. And not being shy about those things, I said, sure, I'll do that. And I did it, and I bored myself to tears. And I said, I'm never doing that again. We're going to do something more interesting. We're going to get people who are more interesting than me to come and be guests. And I don't think we had the whole picture of it 6 years ago, but what it's turned out is we do this weekly, sometimes twice a week or more even we have, and we take an hour and a half, and we identify and engage guests to come and talk to us about topics that are of interest to Zen peacemakers. So this could be war and conflict. It could be racism. It could be end-of-life care. It could be pure dharma or other spirituality. It could be, prisons, or, homelessness, any number of topics. And we try to move through those and keep it interesting. And it's really been engaging. I dare to say thousands of people have attended, and we've put on 144 of these last year. We do all of this without any charge, and there's quite a bit of work that goes into putting these together. We do record them, and we make those recordings available to you afterwards. Anything you can do to help us out is really appreciated. If you, any donation at the website will be most helpful. We are a nonprofit and volunteer organization. So without going any further into that, I want to introduce my friends David Gibson and Bill Hamaker from the Denver Zen Center. We've known each other a while and have done a little bit of work together. And my local Zen Center, Eon Zen Center here in Boulder, Colorado, and Denver Zen Center are closely allied and attached through the lineage. So so we share that. But Bill and David are doing something extraordinary. I think they are going into a local ICE detention center, as you know, because that's why you're here, and bringing stillness and meditation to people who are being held. And I'm not going to give away their story. I'll let them do that. But I thank you all for coming. I'm really looking forward to this. I was sharing with Bill and David just a minute ago. Every time I look at the news, day after day, this is escalating. It's getting worse. So I think this kind of work is healing. It can be healing. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you all for being here. And mostly thank you to Bill and David for offering this. And I'll turn this over to them.
Thank you, Sean. And thank you to everyone in the Zen Peacemakers. All of you who came, I'm just astounded that there's this many people here. I'm Bill Hamaker. I'm an assistant teacher broadcasting from the beautiful Zen Center of Denver. Our temple is located near DU. And my friend and cohort, I should say, he's going to be a cohort because David Gibson, who I started out as, we were mentor-mentee. That means through our program of welcoming and cultivating Sangha here at the Zen Center, I met David a year and a half ago, and he has become like the spearhead for many of our activism type things that we're doing through our Zen peacemaking things. Now, I know that many of you are here for a variety of reasons. some of you are part of our Sangha, as Geoff mentioned, and I see people from cohort 3 and people from ZIP, the Zen in Prisons. I see Koji here. So you're part of our Maha Sangha and are maybe thinking about the three tenets and how thing of the Zen Peacemakers and not knowing, bearing witness, and taking action, plays into all of this. Some of you may be from actual prison Dharma groups or are visiting detainees in a variety of these chaotic, often situations. And so you may be here because you're interested in that. And there may be those of you who, as we've all been listening to the news and Geoff's alluded to, are really being traumatized by what you're seeing. And so I hope that this session will give us, an opportunity, because we will have, roughly half will do our presentation and then open it up for anything. But I think before we begin, because there is so much turmoil around this subject, I'm going to offer that or suggest that we open as we usually do these sessions, and that's to just take some quiet, maybe about a 3-minute meditation. And, again, practicing the three tenets, let's practice not knowing. We may have assumptions about this topic or all of the ramifications of it. If we can just put those aside and be present in this moment, feeling what's in our bodies, feeling our breath, and then opening to this moment. So I'm going to ring the bell 3 times and we'll have about 3 minutes of meditation. Thank you. Thank you for that. So what we're going to talk about today, it makes sense to me to sort of follow the thread of the very beginning of any movement like this, and that comes from peacemaking, and it comes in our case from the Zen Center of Denver. I mentioned earlier, Dave and I are both members, and I'm kind of the old timer. I've been through the three incarnations, I'd say, of the Zen Center, of where we've been in different locations. And we met, David and I, through a cultivating Sangha committee that was formed several years ago to help welcome newcomers. And through this committee, we were paired as a mentor and mentee. And David has really stepped up in the year and a half since he became a member, widely expanding our reach into this social justice arena. And by contrast, I've been a member for 35 years, and I'd again, like to share the history of our temple from the perspective of how we slowly evolved from a Rinzai style temple. We were originally an affiliate with the Rochester Zen Center, with the emphasis on personal enlightenment, to one that has aligned itself with the imperative of taking our practice off the mat, just like Bernie urged us all to do, Bernie Glassman, in order to save the many beings. So the Zen Center was founded in 1974, and it functioned as an affiliate of Rochester and from New York, the Zen Center, and we were in a small house in Congress Park. And then in January of 1998, the Zen Center purchased the historic Fourth Church of Christ Scientists in the Highlands neighborhood of Denver. This was an immense structure, and it was a beautiful place that we renovated, took out theater seats, and made a flat floor and a massive zendo. When our first founding teacher, Dainin Roshi, retired, and the new leadership of our two spiritual directors, Karen Ruku Kempe, and Peggy Meta Sheehan, they assumed spiritual directorship in 2011. So this huge temple in the Highland Park area of Denver became too much to maintain. So following the sale of the temple, and a subsequent year when we had we called it the floating zendo, going to several locations in the Denver area, we purchased a property near the University of Denver, and over the next 3 years, we built from the ground up a beautiful temple, complete with a Zen garden and just a beautiful place tailored to our needs. And then we opened the doors to this new home in 2019. And then, of course, COVID hit. But we, of course, as many of you who have been with Sanghas who went through that, in many ways it strengthened us. It helped us develop this platform that we're enjoying right here, that we're able to forge these relationships together. And we, again, went from a place where, when you take off your shoes and go into the Zen Center, or the temple, the Zendo, you would basically not even talk to anyone, to just a warm and welcoming place full of community and connection. And of course, this is essential if you're doing prison Dharma work, because this is what most detainees need, is connection. So as far as our engaged Buddhism goes, the earliest I heard of it was from, I'll give a shout out to one of our members, Bob Knott, who's like 81 years old now, but back 30 years ago when I joined, over 30 years ago, he is a Peace Corps guy, and he was finding little places, like going and fixing up places in a senior center or things like that. And so I got interested in that, and it made sense. We started shifting our focus as we worked with Diamond Sangha and Robert Aiken Roshi, of more opening and welcoming temple, that we would engage more with the community and engage with Bernie's work, is really what we're talking about here. So our current two main areas where we serve is prison Dharma, and we've been doing for I'll give you the history on that, but it's the Federal Correctional Institute of Inglewood. And this sort of provided a model for how we were able to uh, sell the program, if you will, to the GeoICE chaplain. We also volunteer at Metro Caring Bank, Food Bank, and David is very, very involved with that. So, and all of these things are important, in terms of our peacemaking work. We became an affiliate of the Zen Peacemakers just recently. That affiliation began with Colorado Peacemakers, which, as Geoff said, was Eon Zen Center, Great Mountain Monastery, with Jerry Shishin-Wick, who actually transmitted to one of our teachers here, Karen Roshi. So again, we are in the White Plum lineage. And we became an affiliate with ZPI in March 2022. And kudos to Jim Fricker, Hoden Fricker, who organized us and helped us with that, and the man up there, Geoff O'Keeffe. So that kind of fell apart with COVID, and I hope that we can renew our ties with the Mahasangha. But let's get to the prison Dharma aspect of it. Another tremendous person who started us at the Federal Correctional Institute in Inglewood is a woman named Lois Becker. And she was my jiki when I'm in the morning sitting this morning, so I was sitting right next to her. She was a cloistered nun for 9 years, and just an amazing woman. And I just want to read I asked her to give me a summary of how she developed this federal FCI program, which ultimately led to our getting into ICE. So Lois began prison Dharma work in 2007 as a volunteer with the Contemplative Outreach Center, which is centering prayer, for those of you who may be familiar with that. The early program blended centering prayer at Federal Correctional Institute of Inglewood with indigenous practices such as smudging, talking circles, and extended silence, reflecting the largely Native American population at the time in that facility. Then later that year, there were major institutional changes that reshaped the prison population, the contemplative groups, including the formation of a Spanish language centering prayer group. There was facilitator training, and all of us who work at FCI had to go through a rigorous process of training to be able to be part of this. It's in coordination with the chaplaincy program there. Lois offered contemplative programming starting in 2009, and the federal policy shifted toward reentry focused curriculum-based instruction with measurable outcomes. And there's all sorts of hoops. Those of you who do prison Dharma know that there have to be these things changing from time to time. And then in 2016, after joining the Zen Center of Denver and completing Fleet Mall's path of freedom training, Lois, and by the way, Fleet Mall, I remember vividly, in our first incarnation, he did a presentation at the Zen Center of Denver, and that kind of sparked my interest there too. And of those of you who know Fleet, he's very active in our organization, Zen Peacemaker International. So she completed his path of freedom training, and then she's just, this ex-Catholic nun, started offering explicitly Buddhist programming at FCI. Then in 2018, Lois helped organize and lead efforts to expand prison Dharma work, brought some of us other folks on. We currently have 5 people who rotate week to week, and so we offer it once a week there in FCI. And then as far as the service that we do at FCI, and that we've developed this, it's basically like our morning service that we do here at the Zen Center of Denver. And again, I'm sharing this because we basically just grafted that and translated it into Spanish, and that was what we were using at GeoICE facility. And I think that this was a crucial piece that convinced the chaplain at GeoICE, that we had something viable and valuable to offer the detainees there. So at the Zen Center of Denver, our prison Dharma groups dedicated to offering meditation and Dharma practice to inmates at the Federal Correctional Institute in Inglewood. And by the way, FCI is an all men's facility, and it's for those who are convicted of sexual and drug offenses. Each week, the members of the ZCD Prison Dharma group visit FCI Inglewood and for the chapel program. We're part of the chaplaincy program, and the sessions include light stretching, check-in, mini council circle. We do a morning service with 3 refuges, Master Hakuin's Song of Zazen, and dedications. We do 1 round of seated meditation, 5 minutes of walking meditation, kinhin, and then some sort of Dharma activity, reading a recorded talk or a book study. We're currently doing Pema Chodron's Awakening Loving Kindness. Copies of that book and a study guide were recently donated by the Pema Chodron Foundation to us, so that was wonderful. And then we do a closing with great bows and prostrations. The attendance at FCI typically ranges from 2 to 7 participants who they express deep gratitude for these sessions. The work schedules with Unicor, which is the federal prison industries that are paying these detainees, slave wages, that they often prevent the men from attending, and often will have cancellations, unexpected. And again, those of you who are listening, who are involved in prison work, know of these types of things that you're constantly encountering, these barriers. So we have, basically you have to do a background check, authorization letter, and recommendations. And currently they have cut those off at the Federal Correction of Institute in Inglewood. So I'm going to have, and I'm spent a lot of time on that, but this is basically because we took that program and took it over to GeoICE, and I'm going to turn it over to David. Thanks for your attention, and turn it over to him and explain how we were able to do that.
Thanks, Bill, for that background.
And
Appreciate it.
David, can I step in for just a sec?
Sure.
Um, we've got people from outside the U.S., so I think it's okay if you're a bit rudimentary in explaining what ICE is. I imagine most everyone knows, but let's assume not. And what GEO is as it relates to ICE, so people know.
Yeah, I can certainly provide some of that context just to make sure that we're on the same page and have the same background. In fact, that's kind of where my next piece starts. So timing is good. Yeah, so kind of level setting with what ICE is and what GEO is. So ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Um, they have jurisdiction within 100 miles of the border of the U.S., and they maintain detention centers throughout the U.S. that are basically a prison facility for folks that have been um, apprehended by ICE and then may eventually be deported or released back, back into their communities. Geo Group that Geoff referred to. So all of the ICE detention facilities are privately run. They're for-profit facilities that are privately run. Geo Group is the largest of those private firms, and then Core Civic, and there are others. And this is just an extension of the fact that many federal prisons are now run by private companies as opposed to being directly government run. So, so I wanted to kind of lay out a bit of the immigration landscape um, to get started. So, after last November's election, I very quickly learned the plight of our immigrant neighbors through a lot of resources here in the Denver area. There's a Quaker organization called American Friends Service Committee that has been doing this work for years and was really prepared for the moment that we're in. And they've organized what they call immigrant protection teams. Those are deployed here in Denver and all over the state in Colorado. I also got involved in the Interfaith Immigration Network and really got a quick education on the kind of the context that we're in. I did a little bit of research just to kind of give us a picture of what's happened over the past year. So nationally, since last January, ICE has arrested about 325,000 people. Of that 75,000, so the current population in ICE detention centers around the country is about 75,000. That is the largest in the history of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. 3,500 of those arrests over the last year occurred in Colorado, most of them in Denver County. The other thing to note in terms of context, and this is counter to the conversation that you'll see in the media, 75% of folks in detention have no criminal record, zero. So, they're being profiled and are being put in ICE facilities without any criminal records. Only 25% of them have committed any sort of crime, and only 5% have committed a violent crime. So the reality and the data that's out there is very different from the conversation that we see in the media. The other thing that's happening is there are plans to expand or open as many as 125 facilities to expand that detention from 75,000 up to 110 or 125,000. So to significantly expand the detainee population. 3 new detention facilities are planned here in Colorado that would add another 2,500 beds. And the other thing to note is that much of that expansion is being fast-tracked by repurposing existing jails or existing prisons that have been closed or gone dormant, and repurposing those into ICE detention facilities as opposed to having to build those facilities from scratch. So those can be turned into ICE detention facilities very quickly, sometimes within months. So as I got farther into this journey, I started to understand that this whole situation was not a problem to be solved. I'm an engineer, so I'm always looking for a problem to be solved. But I really started to understand that this was more of a presence to be offered than a problem to be solved. And that's where, for me, kind of connects with the idea of not knowing. And then as we look at bearing witness, I began to understand that this was more about holding space for our immigrant neighbors simply as human beings and not as the other. And then I saw a lot of loving action around me, weekly vigils at the ICE Detention Center, letter writing, protests, policy efforts. But I really started to settle on offering our presence in meditation, similar to what we were doing at FCI Englewood, as Bill described. So I'll shift from that to kind of a recipe of how we were able to gain access to ICE. And as Geoff and Bill and I were talking beforehand, one of my dreams is that somehow this conversation today will inspire some of you to try to do this, through your own Zen temples and to do the same at other ICE facilities in around the country. And if there's any way that Bill and I can help you do that, then we're happy to stay in touch and do that. But so I offer kind of a recipe of how we did this in the hopes that you might get inspired. So oddly enough, this all got started with my simply calling the ICE Detention Center in Aurora. just a cold call to the ICE Detention Center and asking for the chaplain and asking how we can support the spiritual needs of detainees. I'm Roman Catholic and Zen Buddhist in the same body, so I simply offered to the chaplain that I had, a lot of resources here in Denver, and was eager to support detainees' spiritual needs, and just wanted to understand how we could support them. So many of the detainees here in Aurora, Colorado, are Roman Catholic, and they're Spanish language speaking. And so the first thing that the chaplain said was, we need Spanish language Catholic Bibles. A lot of organizations kind of dump Bibles on us, but they're not what our detainees need. And if you could find funding and provide us with that, that's a huge need for our detainees. So this was something that we were able to do immediately through the Interfaith Immigration Network. A friend that works with the Boulder Area Sanctuary and Immigrant Coalition and I were able to raise funds, and we're now providing 20 Spanish language Catholic Bibles every month to the detention center. And we've since been able to provide other religious texts that they've asked for. And so that was kind of an immediate way in the door. And then the second thing that we talked about was establishing a weekly meditation at the facility. This conversation started probably in July of last year. It was October before we were able to get folks trained, and it was November before we were able to start sitting. So it took quite a while. I believe strongly that the background that Bill just went through and our having kind of a track record at FCI Englewood established some trust with the chaplain. He really seems to be a good guy in a bad situation and really takes to heart his mission or his job to provide for the spiritual needs of detainees. There had never been a Zen Buddhist meditation in the ICE Detention Center here in Aurora, so this was breaking new ground. But I think our track record at FCI kind of gave us a way in the door. So Bill and I set about recruiting volunteers. I had to get our liturgy, basically our morning sitting, and what we had been doing in Englewood approved by the chaplain. Volunteers had to submit applications. They had to go through ICE background checks. And then once those background checks were complete, we had to do facility training and orientation just to get familiar with accessing the facility and their rules and more of the nuts and bolts of how we needed to conduct ourselves in the facility. We had to go to the level of getting the things that we were bringing in approved. Um, if you bring in something hard or metallic or sharp, it can turn into a weapon. So anything that you bring into the facility, chant books, timers, electric candles, a Kesu bell, all those things had to be approved before we could bring them in. And then we finally were able to schedule weekly sittings. Um, we have a mix of male and female volunteers, but we're only able to sit with men simply because there is not a female chaplain and there is not a female guard or staff worker that's able to support this. Since the chaplain is male, only men can come and sit with us, which is unfortunate. Um, so we've been sitting weekly since November, uh, and we'll go into more details of that. But we've been facing some challenges. We've had a freeze on getting new volunteers um, in the fold. We have had times where there's no detainees and our volunteers show up only to find that the sitting has been canceled. If the chaplain is not there, then the sitting gets canceled. If there's a holiday, it gets canceled. And so, it's a new adventure every week, but we continue to offer that presence regardless of the circumstances. So when we get to the Q&A, hopefully that kind of recipe maybe strikes a chord with some of you, and you can kind of see a pathway to get this going. And we believe that we're the only that this is the only place that has happened around the country. So we really do feel like we're breaking new ground. So we're going to shift to what I would loosely call kind of a dramatization. Um, and it's an effort to try to capture the field reports that our volunteers have shared about their experiences with sittings, our experiences in relating to the men there. We've anonymized names, and we've tried to make this a little more dramatic to give you a sense, kind of a emotional sense of what our experience has been. And this is in two voices, Bill's and mine. So I'll pull up the document so that Bill and I can follow this. And whoops, I pulled up the wrong thing.
Yeah, and while
So
David's looking, I just want to say this idea of reporting, field reporting is really what it is. And we've done this at Federal Correctional Institute in Inglewood, and it's mainly it's accountability, and it also teaches us, we learn from each other what we're encountering there. But it also points out there's a lot of poignancy in our experiences that we're sharing with each other. And just very powerful. We've also asked for each of us to write our impressions of things like the training and just what we're feeling inside. So we've kind of, as David said, we're all going to offer you a dramatic presentation. This is called a Bearing Witness Through Meditation two-voice presentation script. So we'll just do that starting now. So when we first entered the GeoIce detention facility, we didn't yet know what we were stepping into. 5 of us completed the background checks and the volunteer training, and on paper it all seemed straightforward: orientation, procedures, expectations. But the experience itself was surreal. We walked through a stark front entrance, then down loud, glaringly lit corridors, only to arrive in a classroom set up with a catered Olive Garden lunch. That contrast alone told us something important. This place would hold contradictions that don't resolve easily. The Geo staff who gave us training were professional and welcoming, very welcoming. We were shown the chapel, a simple designated room with stacked chairs and a table, and told we might bring meditation cushions, mats, and a small service liturgy. It all sounded almost ordinary, and yet nothing about this setting felt ordinary. This was our first encounter with not knowing.
one of us reflected later that even the language used in the training was difficult. Calling detainees residents, with many positive opportunities presented to them, like medical treatment and social activities, while speaking about them as if they were a criminal population. And still there was appreciation. Food was offered, volunteers were thanked, and our presence was named as important. That tension between care and control, welcome and confinement, never really leaves. From the beginning, it was clear that we would need to meet people where they were, not where we imagined they might be.
One of the first sobering realities we encountered was how quickly people come and go. The men who sit with us one week are often gone the next, moved, deported, transferred. It became clear that we were often offering one-time encounters, brief moments of stillness within deeply disjointed journeys. That changed how we spoke. We began using language like, wherever you go next, this practice can travel with you. Even if your surroundings change, this moment of calm is still available. So we weren't offering answers. We were offering continuity, however fragile.
The first meditation sittings made something very clear. what we weren't offering what we were offering wasn't instruction, it was care. One man told us how grateful he was that we came, because no one else came to see him. Another spoke of trauma and abuse in his life and how being detained had made him reflect on mental health in a new way. Many were open, many were new to meditation, so we kept it simple. Eyes open if needed, no judgment of thoughts. Counting the breath is optional. The intention was safety. You could feel it in the room, how tension softened, how hypervigilance melted, and how faces changed in just a few minutes of being seen and included.
One of the most important shifts that we made early on was this. We stopped thinking of the practice as something we were bringing to them. Instead, it became something we were sharing with them. We sat in a circle. We introduced ourselves by name. We said explicitly, we are equal participants here. And in a place defined by hierarchy and surveillance, that mattered. We recited simple chants, sometimes in English, sometimes in Spanish. We walked slowly together. We sat, we breathed, and often that was sufficient.
Language was always present, both as a bridge and a limitation. Most of the men were Spanish speaking. A few were bilingual and generously translated, not just words, but tone and intention. Eye contact, nodding, leaning forward often carried more meaning than language itself. One man said he could imagine sharing this practice with his family. Another said simply, "Thank you for coming. Not many people do, even my friends." Those words stayed with us.
Of course, there are and were challenges. Sometimes only 3 men came, sometimes 15, sometimes none, because of a lockdown, a scheduling error, or a simple miscommunication. Once, two of us arrived fully prepared, only to be told that no one had signed up and the session was canceled without notice. We stood there, badges in hand, turned away. It was frustrating and familiar, but even those moments became teaching moments.
In conversations with the chaplain, several patterns began to emerge. Many detainees are deeply traumatized. Attention spans can be short. Most are Catholic and may only try a Zen offering once. So we're adapting. We begin to imagine our work less as Zen practice and more as meditation, mindfulness, stress reduction, and connection. We talked about incorporating practices like loving kindness prayer, guided meditation, breath awareness, and even Christian contemplative prayer. The form mattered less than the function.
Over time, one thing became clear. Even when only one person showed up, we would still come. Because what we are really practicing is presence. And this work continually brings us back to the 3 tenets: not knowing, bearing witness, loving action; not knowing what will happen, bearing witness to the suffering without turning away, and responding not with fixes, but with care.
Every visit is still sobering. There's gratitude for the chance to sit together and heartache for the reality of the place. Walking out through quiet hallways, past locked doors, back into the sunlight, the contrast never really disappears. But neither does the sense that something real has happened, even if it was brief and even if it can't be measured.
We don't know where the men we sat with are now. We don't even know if they remember our names. But we do know this: for a few minutes, in a system built on waiting and uncertainty, there was stillness, there was dignity, there was shared humanity. And that, for now, has to be enough. Thank you. I think, David, you are going to share about some of the other avenues.
Yeah, so we're at about 45 minutes, and we wanted to allow a lot of time for questions and feedback and discussions. So I'll offer just a few thoughts about the immigration justice context in Denver. And then I think after that, Bill's going to post a couple of links in the chat just to give you some resources. So maybe 5 more minutes here, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Um, so I guess the context that I'd like to offer is that we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without the broader context of what's been happening in the US and specifically here in Denver. And all the attention during the election that was paid to Aurora. Um, there's a Mexican woman, Jeanette Viscura, that was scooped up by ICE and was detained for about 9 months because she had gotten the administration's attention during the previous administration. So there's been a lot of attention here in Colorado, and there's a lot of really good organizations that have been on the ground for a long time that were prepared for this moment and have been doing great work. I mentioned the Denver Immigrant Protection Teams, the Interfaith Immigration Network, American Friends Service Committee. Those are all organizations that are active here and their counterparts around the country. Um, and there's lots of interesting programs. There's a letter writing program called Cartas de Paz, or Letters of Peace, that's organized here locally by an organization called Casa de Paz. And you can basically be a peace pal or a pen pal and writing to detainees around the country. Whoop, sorry, my phone's getting an Amber Alert. As um, any of you who are in Denver, you might be seeing an Amber Alert. Um, so, uh, so this Cartas de Paz program is something that you can dive into and write regular letters to detainees. Um, but I learned through that most detainees are, if you're scooped up in Denver, you're detained in New Mexico. Or if you're scooped up in Chicago, you're probably detained in Texas. There's a deliberate effort to remove people from their families and friends and their support networks. And that's why detainees will tell you that they rarely get visited because they're deliberately separated from their families. Um, just to offer kind of the context of what's going on here and the work that we're doing at the Zen Center is centered in much larger context of work that's happening in Colorado and in Denver, and we're sort of standing on the shoulders of others that have been doing this work for years. Um, so I think as we get into Q&A, I think Bill's gonna just post a variety links to a variety of organizations that we're familiar with that might be useful to you. But we'll open it up to the group. Any questions that you've got, discussion. If you're simply traumatized by the moment and want to share that, we're sort of wide open. I think it probably works best if you raise your virtual hand so that we can, we've got almost 60 people here. If we can see your virtual hand, then we can we're better able to respond to questions as we go. And so, Jamie, you looks like you've got a question. Bill and I will just leave our mics. So Jamie Baker Roski has got a hand up. If you want to go ahead, Bill and I will leave our mics open and yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I have a few questions just for background. I'm a lawyer here in Colorado, and I have done some volunteer work for RAIN, which for those of you who don't know is the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network. I haven't worked out at Geo specifically, but so a couple of things things I'm curious about, and also just wanted to ask you to expand on something you said. first of all, I didn't realize that the private detention centers had chaplains. Is that something for employees of GEOs? And is that something that GEO just provides as a corporate
Yeah, so
service?
yeah, my experience is at least within Geo Group, um, the facilities that are run by them have a chaplain assigned to each facility. Um, and there's actually a director of faith-based services that is over all of the facilities um, that Geo runs, and those are Geo Group employees. They're not ICE employees. Um, so yeah, that's my understanding. The chaplain here in Aurora has been our kind of our primary contact and our way into the facility. But my understanding is that's the case structurally at any facility that Geo operates. And I would assume that it's the same with other ICE facilities that might be run by the other companies are that have these contracts.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Um, And so then you made a remark that you sort of talked about the way they're going to trying to massively expand immigration detention. For example, I'm sure you're aware they're trying to reopen a facility in Hudson, Colorado, which is in Weld County, which is I'm in Larimer County, so close to where I am. But you said you saw it as a problem not to be solved. I have a much different perspective on that, and so I want to understand how you came to understand it as not a problem to be solved. Because from my perspective, stopping them from expanding detention and stopping, I mean, these are concentration camps. There are torturous conditions going on in there. I don't need to tell you this. You understand exactly what's going on with the detainees. Medical care is being withheld. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in that environment all the time, but I don't know that I could land on it not being a problem to be solved. So maybe if you could expand on that a little bit, what you mean by that, because I think advocacy against immigration detention being expanded is extraordinarily important and is in a much, it's a much different posture and position in our society right now than, we have federal prisons. Immigration
Yeah.
detention is a much different situation. So obviously you took an approach with working with people, but I'm wondering about the ways in which you confront the system, how that might be different.
Yeah, I think I can expand on that. Um, the I would say with my remark, that's more of a mindset. Um, I've worked in social justice in various ways for much of my life. Spent time in sub-Saharan Africa trying to provide electricity to rural communities there. And it's very easy to get in um, sort of a white savior mindset that I've got the solution and I understand what you need and I'm going to come and solve your problem. And that can very easily disempower the folks that you're working with if you walk in the door and believe that you've got the answers and they're just a marginalized person to be served. And so when I said that, it is a problem to be addressed, and stopping ICE from having new facilities in Colorado is an issue to be addressed. But I find that I'm more effective if I'm focusing on offering presence and coming out of that headspace and not coming out of more of my professional engineering space of, this is a very discrete problem to be solved. So I agree with you. It's more of a mindset that I've learned that helps me be more productive. So Marjorie, you've got a question.
Sorry, could I just go on a quick follow up? So, if you do hear from a detainee who has a specific problem, like they haven't been able to talk to a lawyer, are you able to make any kind of connection like that with people?
Bill might be able to better speak to this. Um, there are visitation programs that are just going and visiting people, and there are other organizations that are more kind of suited to, to hearing a detainee's issues and responding to that. In our setting, we're offering meditation, and we're not really hearing those issues, nor are we expected to address those. So, Bill, you might want to chime in there if there's anything to add.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, as David said, this was a long, involved process just getting in, and we've been there, what, less than 10 times, because we've gone, just for 6, 8 weeks, and we've been stymied every time. We are finding the language barrier an issue. So, yeah, we have not even been able to address that. I think what my take on it's not a problem to be solved. I mean, we're seeing this as like a fire hose with all of that's coming out in the media and things like that. But if you go in there with the mindset of I'm going to fix everything, that is not our intention. What it is to be present with them, however we can. Of course, if someone were to get word to us, we would pass that on. But for me, in my personal life, I can't watch what's going on the large scale. This brings me into focus on how I can be present and serve, and connect and allow for connection and quiet and peacefulness. So that's where I see that. So
Yep,
thanks.
let's go to Marjorie.
I just wanted to say thank you both. That was a very helpful context. I really appreciate it. And I know your presence is, I'm sure, very, very healing for folks. So thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. So Marjorie McCoy and then Sharon Rittner.
I have two quick questions. The first is you just made reference, Bill, to difficulties with language. So then not all your volunteers are Spanish speaking, is that correct? And how do you manage in that eventuality?
Yeah, we all have some minimal Spanish, and our chaplain. The last time I went in with another volunteer, and that was the time where no one came. He said, "Well, there are some problems with it, and this is one of the major issues. We have are in touch. We just are trying to recruit one of our members who is a fluent Spanish speaker, and I think that is probably an essential. I'm working really hard on my Mango app, to learn as much as I can. And I do volunteer in food banks where the primary language is Spanish. But, being a native speaker and they see someone like me struggling with it, I know that is a huge barrier. So we are trying to shift and get more resources from our Sangha in that regard.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
Marjorie, the other issue with that before your second question is the reality is folks that are native Spanish speakers are most likely also immigrants and could put themselves at risk by going in as a volunteer. And so it's been challenging to find volunteers that are interested in this that are also native or proficient Spanish speakers. So yeah, it's kind of a structural issue that we've had to deal with.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. My second question is, I'm interested to see that both of you, with a long history of activism and community involvement, made it through the screening process. Did that not seem to be an issue for Geo, ICE, or whoever else was reviewing your backgrounds?
Well, I went over what they did. It was basically the same as, they do a criminal background check. I don't remember getting fingerprinted. I'm sure, that's part of it. It was a standard check, and it wasn't difficult. It did take a long time for them to process it.
But it wasn't political necessarily.
No, it was more so if for typically if you're working with children, for example, as a volunteer, then the local police department will do a background check,
Right.
just to make sure that you're not, say, on a sexual offenders register or something like that. This was more along those lines, where the application was just your basic information, submitting your driver's license, passport, social security card, your identifying information, and then they just use their system to run a background check there wasn't anything in the application about, the fact that Bill's been through the Zen Peacemaker order training, or that I spent time in Africa, or something like that. There, none of that background was there. So it was more cut and dried.
And we didn't have to do authorization like for Inglewood FCI. I had to have two recommendations and a letter from the spiritual director, you know. And we didn't require any of that for the ICE. It was just a basic government background check.
Thank you both very much.
Sharon Rittner, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my comments was going to be, I think you can probably do activism or you can do visiting, but you might not be able to do both. Uh, so pick wisely. But so far, it's not a problem. Um, I wondered if you can take in in your iPhone that would allow you to use a translation app. No, they won't let you do that.
No, neither at Federal Correctional Institute in Inglewood or in the ICE facility, you cannot bring in something where you could communicate to the outside.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Just a couple of things, and I'm trying my best to exclude anything political, but I may not be able to resist. Um, First off, I've been thinking about this program for a number of days, and I'm just really impressed that you guys were able to get in. I mean, we know the news stories in various states where elected officials, Congress people, and mayors and others were either turned away or roughed up or arrested and prosecuted. Um, so hats off to you that you were persistent, or you at least found the right way to approach this so that you could bring this care to these people. I do have to say I appreciate that you said you shared some statistics that what we're being told about why these people are being arrested is not true. They're not all criminals. They're mostly not criminals. Um, and it apparently is not about undocumented migrant people either. Minnesota, there's 21 states that have more undocumented people than Minnesota. So that something else is going on here. Um, but that's for another kind of a meeting, I think. Um, do you? The one question I wanted to ask you is: do you have people who return, who come back each time and sit with you?
Well, I would say we started out with like a dozen, 15. That was maybe the first time, and the first two volunteers came in. Then Bob Knott and I went in the second time, and there was like 6 or 8, and we don't really know, but I think some of the men, were from the first time. Um, the next time someone came in, the chaplain, I guess, couldn't get the group of, these mainly Spanish-speaking men, and he brought in just two, like, sort of random people they both spoke English, and one was, I think, Asian, and one, you know, they weren't Latin American detainees. So it's just so all over the place. I want to make an important distinction too, or an interesting thing. The facility is called Geo Ice, but just being in there and talking to the employees, they're the same type of employees. They probably hate their job, but they're very polite and they're nice to us coming in. And I've heard them talking on the phone to people that are trying to find out where their relatives are, and they're saying, "We don't know. ICE just drops them off, and we take them." And it might have been the police, the local police that brought them in. We don't care. Our job is to just, once we got them. So there's this real, I think, separation between Geo and ICE. Of course, they're both doing the devil's work, as it you might say, but they really are almost, it seems, independent of each other.
So it looks like Jill Greenbaum, you've got a question, but you haven't been able to raise your hand. So go ahead, and then Wendy Fernstrom after that.
Thanks so much. Extreme frustration here. So, two quick questions. Well, the first is there are women in this facility also, but they're not served because there's no female chaplain that is on staff with Geo. Is that right?
Or a correctional officer that would, are they called correctional officers in there? COs. We would have to have an official woman present, and the chaplain says that is not possible.
Right. And official means it comes from Geo. Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
right.
As a female chaplain, I'm sitting here going, "What?" Anyway, beyond that, um, is part of the intention being here this evening, or can I make the suggestion that those of us that have an interest in finding out how to do this, like I'm from New York, so New York, New Jersey border kind of thing, I'd be interested in getting together with other people that are in this area to try and do something. So is that a possibility? Maybe names in the chat, or I don't want to step on your toes, or so, this is not about giving you work to do. It's more a question like, hey, is this a possibility?
Well, you see in the chat I have posted, there are some
Yes.
resources there, and I've sat with a shout out to, I see Koji is here with us, or was, and some of the other people in the ZIP group. That's the Soto Zen Buddhist Association's group. There is also on, and I think there's only a few posts on it, but certainly there is a prison outreach community on the Hive there.
Mm-hmm.
That last link there too that I have, the Prison Dharma affiliate playlist, Hoden does such a great job of bringing all the vast materials that we have and archives in the Zen Peacemaker, events like this, and he does such a great job. But that Prison Dharma affiliate playlist is worth looking at, and I'm
Okay.
sure there are good ideas there too. So,
Bill, if I could add, Jill, if you're a member of Zen Peacemakers, then you can get down into our membership uh, platform. Bill just referred to it, the Hive,
Right.
and there are dedicated topical rooms down in there. And
Okay.
I know there's one for prison. You can also go into the community. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly, but people, it probably says something like people, and then search. You can search New York, and you can literally communicate directly with all members of Zen Peacemakers who are nearby you.
Okay.
So we really try to facilitate that for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and I guess what I would add before we go to the next question is, Bill and I both would be perfectly happy to interact with folks, just to share our experiences, answer any questions, help you make connections. If there's anything that we can do to facilitate, that was one of our hopes in offering this today, is that, somehow this spurs folks in other parts of the country to try to mimic what we're doing. So we consider that an opportunity, not work. um, so Wendy Fernstrom, you were next, and then Jay Hale.
Hi, thank you so much. The work that you're doing just sounds fantastic. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, so I'm in the thick of it right now. I would love to do something like you are, but our detention centers are temporary. They're horrible conditions, and attorneys can't even go in. It's outrageous. But my question to you is, you're going in and you're being present. And these people, even it sounds like conditions there are better than they are here, but they're separated from their family. They're completely displaced. Whatever they're feeling, I would get the sense that you would be empathetic and compassionate. And what do you do afterwards when you've been with them? How do you process or work through the feelings that you have in response to being present with these people?
well, fortunately, a couple of us are work in the social work or psychology field, and you see that in the notes, and when we're encouraging each other to respond in that way, not only to the detainees but to each other. And unfortunately, we're all practicing members here at Zen Center of Denver, and I don't want to go all kumbaya, but I love this place. We have, through our cultivating a new Sangha members and so on, and doing council circles and peacemaker work together, and just being there and sitting with each other is how we heal, I think.
Yeah, it seems like a really important part of the work. So, yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I think you have to acknowledge that it is traumatic. I mean, we go in through the south entrance, which is not relatively far from the chapel room. But the first night, the first time I showed up for the training, I went to the front entrance, drove right up, and there's barricades all over, and there's a guard, going, waving his arms at me and says, "You have to turn around." And of course, I was driving my new EV. And couldn't maneuver it very well. So he's getting really angry, but I just tried to be, thank you for getting me out. And then he was very nice once I got out. So then going in, that parking on the street, didn't you know you're supposed to park on the street? No, I didn't know. Then he was very kind and made sure I got in the front door where, those of you who do prison work, it's very daunting to see the metal detectors and guards and lockers, and the noise starts right away because there's nothing on the walls, and you're being led through corridors, multiple rooms, and gates opening and slamming shut, looking through glass windows at bunks just piled top on top of each other. And then you walk into a room and you get in an Olive Garden. So it's really surreal. It does take a toll on you, an experience like that. So it is very helpful that we're sharing this together. There's only 5 of us, and we went in 2 at a time at the beginning, and now we're spread so thin. It's lucky if we can get in, and then even then we're turned away sometimes. So it's challenging, but it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Jay Hale, I think, has got a hand up, and I think we've got 10 or 15 minutes left before we wrap up, just to um, put a pin in that.
So this is James. Wanted to say thank you again for the service on Sunday. That was very nice to have a way to positively approach things. So good to meet you both. The question I have, the links that you gave, I'm watching on my phone while I'm on a break from work. Will those links be available elsewhere, separate from this chat, so that so I can follow up on those?
How can we manage that, Geoff? Would there be a way with the archive to?
Tell you what, I'll put my email address in the chat, and
James, you can copy those right now. Oh, you can't because you're at work. You're just listening. I see. Yeah. And by the way, James is referring to the wonderful council circle that we had on Sunday.
oh, good.
He was able to join us. He's this newer guy at the Zen Center, and just lots of things going on. So, yeah, copy that one for sure. The Zen Center of Denver, because we do a lot of virtual sits, and it's a way to. I'd love to connect with any of you. And as David says, please do not hesitate to contact us after.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, James.
My friend Mark Miller. Go
Thank
for
you.
it.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. You mentioned that there's a hold on those of us who are interested in volunteering, and can you give us any kind of update about why they put a hold on and when they might release those applications for volunteers?
Yeah, so Mark, there really isn't kind of a clear reason. It seems to be more bureaucracy than anything else. Maybe a lack of, I've tried to make it clear to the chaplain, that our volunteers are, folks that have day jobs. None of us are sort of full-time clergy or anything like that. And that, we need to have multiple volunteers in order to maintain this on a weekly basis. And it just seems to be a bureaucratic brick wall, similar to the fact that it took, about 4 or 5 months just to get from that initial conversation to sitting. So I'm hopeful that we'll break through that. The challenge is that they only offer the training and orientation once a quarter. They don't offer it on a weekly or monthly basis. So once they kind of open the door to processing new applications, then there's probably still a waiting time. Yeah, and there's a number of folks that want to volunteer or have submitted applications, and we're just in a holding pattern. So I would say 95% just bureaucracy. Barbara.
Let's see. Thank you, Bill and David. It's good to see you. Um, I'm wondering, curious, have you seen any impact on the staff there of the work that you're offering, of the presence you're offering?
Well, it's often said that those who work in the prisons are also sometimes as traumatized as those that are being detained there. It always at both of the places where I serve in prison Dharma. It's interesting the interactions and a great way to practice, not knowing and bearing witness and being really present with the people. I remember the first time we went in, they couldn't find the badges that they assured us that we have the guard that was there. And when we came out, there was a younger guy who was just all over. I can't believe that she, so. I'm always really interested in interactions with the person who's at the front door and wondering what what their lives are like. But I don't know if I've seen any change. I haven't made any. It's a different guard every time I've been in there. So um, yeah, but
Yeah. I mean, I would offer maybe a little different perspective from sitting on the outside. There's a group of us that have started doing an interfaith sitting and sort of a vigil on the outside every week. We started that a few months ago and have deliberately tried to make that a mix of Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, Native American, Muslim, Quaker, a variety of different traditions. And we're just getting that off the ground. And the guards are patrolling the facility regularly, um, and are constantly driving by, and certainly are looking at us as we're sitting, but have not approached us, accosted us, kicked us out. They just kind of know that we're there and notice that and keep going. There's another program that Casa de Paz does that's called Love and Snacks, um, that is basically showing up to offer some support to families that are coming to visit their loved ones, um, and giving them some resources of organizations that they can plug into, and literally giving them, a bottle of water and some snacks, just offering them some support when they come to visit loved ones. And I've seen guards speaking to the folks that are doing the love and snacks effort. Um, and those seem to be civil, productive, just two human beings talking to each other. Um, and So, yeah, I mean, that's been my experience with the staff there. But certainly, there's the potential that there's just as traumatized as the detainees. Um, so, yeah, I often wonder how someone gets into that role, and what brought them to the place that's the job that they would have. And there's got to be some trauma there to put them in that spot. So, and Mark just posted regarding the interfaith silent meditation. The next one's coming up at 10 a.m. on Saturday, and our hope is that those are weekly or at least fairly frequently. So that's happening on for those of you that are in the larger Denver area. That's an opportunity on Saturday morning. So I don't see any more questions. Geoff, you want to lead us to the finish line and wrap things up? And
Yeah, I
thanks
think
again for the opportunity. This has been just nice to have a conversation, and hopefully we didn't bore you to tears with some of the background, but we thought we needed to paint the full picture and give you the context.
thank
Well,
you, David.
just to be here with all of you, it's always astounding to me that little boxes on a screen mean so much to me. And a special shout out to my cohort Z's 3PO, cohort 3 friends who are here, David, Mimsy, and Carolyn. I probably can't see all of you, but it's just such a wonderful family we have here. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you both for the work you're doing and for sharing this. And uh, uh, not to repeat for its own sake, but it is my hope that this will inspire others to explore perhaps how to do this, in other areas. I don't think this is going away. The ICE budget was tripled from 25 billion to 75 billion dollars this year, and so I think there's more of this work to be done in the future. So we have a strong back and a soft front, and keep our hearts open to this suffering and whatnot. So with that, let's go ahead and close. And I wish everyone a nice evening if it's evening where you are, and we hope to see you again.